Okay, well, we'll get started because we've only got an hour, and actually it's quite a comprehensive report. Just so you know, the process that we'll go through is Baz and Rainer will introduce, we'll take the report as read, so there's no presentation. There are 10 key sections in the report, 8 strategic activities, 1 strategy area, and 1 overall finance. I'm going to allocate 5 minutes per section for questions. Within the strategic activity areas, I'm going to leave water to the end. So if there is some time that we've made up by not having any questions, that will allow more time for water. So then hopefully we can make sure we cover off everything within an hour. If we can't deal with all the questions, I'm sure you can put them in writing, and officers will be able to respond later. If you've already asked a question in writing to the officers and you're waiting for a response, can I suggest that you don't ask that again? Those responses are coming out. I don't want to double dip, basically. So, yeah. Okay, so over to you, Baz and Rainer.
Good afternoon, councillors. Look, we'll keep it reasonably brief in terms of introductory remarks. Just to note, first off, this is Q2, so what we're talking about is October to December last year. So it doesn't cover anything relating to the current year. Like you said, Chair, there is a range of questions that have been made online. We're answering those as fast as we can, and we hope to get those out tomorrow. The other thing worth noting for those that haven't gone through a number of these quarterly reports is that we do exceptions reporting, so we don't report on every single KPI. We deal with exceptions, so those that are showing non-performance, so those are the ones we talk about and present information on. In regard to those, there are a number that are identified both in the covering report as well as in the main quarterly report itself. And so there's a couple of KPIs in relation to parking that are not being met, waste, library services, and a resource consent one as well. And those that relate to council, and there's also a few in the CCO area. There's 4 in Wellington Water, the zoo in terms of visitation, and that's largely weather related. There's a couple in Wellington NZ, as well as the Museums Trust, which is being affected by visitation numbers due to a number of their facilities being closed, as well as cruise ships are a little bit lower than they have been in previous years. So that's just a very high level overview in terms of where performance is not meeting target. Details are in the report, and we're happy to answer any questions in relation to any of the key performance information. But I guess before we do that, it'd be good to hear from Rainer just in terms of very high level financial summary, and then we can get into the questions.
Kia ora koutou. I will just keep this high level and happy to take questions at the end. So for the Q2, we've got a $44 million surplus, which is about $16 million higher than budget. This is in part due to revenue is actually less than budget, and expenditure is below budget by about 34 million. I guess what we're seeing here is that there's some timing differences in expenditure through the budget versus actuals, and we're making an effort to kind of tidy that up to better align our spending with what our actuals and making sure that budget is phased correctly. So come Q3, we should be able to report that better to give a more accurate reflection of where the timing of the spend. Capital expenditure is about $117 million below budget, so we're sitting at 66% of our capital spend up till the end of December. You'll also see through the report that there's some budget adjustments. So we bring these budget adjustments to you where we're requesting budgets to move for particular reasons. So there's a couple in there around moving between operating and capital expenditure, and there's some other ones there requesting further budget changes just to be reflected, and that's a best process to bring those to you. But happy to take any questions on those as well.
Well, what we might just do is we might circle back at the end, and because I think we'll touch on some of the activities. So the first activity is governance, which is on pages. This is not the agenda numbering. This is actual numbering of the report. Is 13 to 15. I had to print it out big because I couldn't read it in the agenda. So just to be clear, this strategic area covers governance and information, Mataho Aronui, strategy and finance, Smart Council, which is our IT and IT systems, communications and creative, and economics and engagement. So in terms of the performance, I think that's all one team, is it? Communications. It sort of seems
It's split across a number of different teams, and sometimes we have teams that sit across multiple activity areas depending on what they deliver. So there is a hybrid there.
Yeah, I was just thinking from the economics perspective. Okay, any questions on governance activity? No? Okay, it looks good. We're moving along. Next one is the environment and infrastructure, pages 16 to, looks like 20, and that's, this does not include water, which we'll have questions about water infrastructure on as a separate one. Any questions on this report in here? Oh, right. Yeah, I'm pleased you've all read it. I'm going to leave Wellington Water to the end because I just want to allow a little bit more time. So if we make time up elsewhere, we can give more time to water. The next one is economic development on page 26 to 30. And geez, it must have been 34. Urban development, page 35. And that also includes housing development. Yep, no questions. And transport, page 40. Any questions on this performance? Oh, it's whizzing through them. Okay, so what we'll do is we'll go back to water, which was page 21. And I just wonder, before we just get into that, Andrea, can I ask you just to sort of clarify a little bit more about, where the budgets lie in that, especially around the CapEx? Or Rainer, sorry.
Sorry, in regards to
Just
water.
just about the CapEx in terms of the Wellington Water.
Yes, so it sits across the three activities: drinking water, wastewater, stormwater, and that will be included in that report. We obviously receive information from Wellington Water to reflect in these reports, so a lot of that information is from them.
So currently, in terms of their operating expenditure and their capital expenditure, they're slightly behind budget in terms of their delivery of the program. The way in which the program works is we allocate a pool of money to Wellington Water. Wellington Water then advise us on what work they're going to do within that ring-fenced amount, and that's something that the team monitor very closely, but there's ongoing conversations depending on where contractors are based, what's most efficient, etc., in terms of where that work's done. Historically, what we have always seen is there's been a bit of a lag in terms of delivery to budget at this time of year. The reason for that is largely weather related, and what we do see is a huge portion of Wellington Water's work is undertaken in in the last 6 months of the financial year. So that's the trend that they tend to work towards, and that is what they are looking to achieve again this year, financial year, I should say. So what you will see is the current trajectory, but also within the report, the forecast trajectory, which shows that there's some improvement, albeit they're not expecting to spend to budget. I would note that all of these forecasts were done prior to Mile Point, so this hasn't taken that into consideration, and they will need to think about that, and obviously we'll be working with them really closely through that process.
Thank you. Councillor Tiffenbacher.
Do we understand why they may not spend to budget? I mean, obviously water is something that we have massive issues with. I'm just trying to get my head around the fact that even though it's projected, they're still projecting not to spend it all. It just seems strange.
I'm going to ask Margot to come up and speak to that.
Kia ora, councillors. So it will come through to you in the written Q&A. There are a number of reasons for the forecast underspend. Some of it is actually really positive news. So since the reviews that were undertaken last year, there have been improved procurement practices. So there's far more competitive pricing. Works have completed earlier than planned. Scope has been adjusted, so therefore delivering less, requiring less budget. And then there's also just delays in works as you would typically expect in a project environment. So there are a number of reasons. They're not all bad reasons. Some of them are actually positive because they give us better commercial arrangements.
Any other questions? Sorry. Councillor Tiffenbacher.
I'm still a little bit confused because I appreciate we get better procurement. I appreciate we deliver earlier, but we have enough jobs too. So I still don't quite understand why Wellington Water wouldn't take that money and say, we're going to save this money, we've got better deals, fantastic, we're going to do more.
It's also thinking about the transfer over to Te Aki Wai. So there is also about a period of time where the decisions aren't necessarily for Wellington Water to be making, and they have to be cognizant of the decision-making authority that they have versus what we're stepping into with Te Aki Wai. So there are a number of reasons, and as I say, I don't think they're all negative.
I wonder, could you just, while you're there, just comment, because we still see for the full year, the forecasted capex is still going to be underspent by about $5-6 million. So is there any reason behind that? Because I can understand up till now, but just even the forecast amount is just still going to come in under budget.
There are some projects who are running behind schedule, and there are some projects where the consents haven't come through in time to actually commence the capital works. So again, what you would expect in a natural environment in complex projects such as the ones we're talking about.
Okay, thank you. And just so you know, there's Appendix 2 has a bit more detail from page 56. So I'm also referencing that as well. Are there any other questions about Wellington Water? Bearing in mind that obviously we've got more information to come generally about the situation at Moa Point at the right time and what that means for our budgets. Okay. All right, great. So the next section was a deep dive into one of our key strategy areas, which was the waste strategy, zero waste strategy. And are there any questions on that? Can't see any. Okay. So I'd like just to now circle back to the finances, and I've just got some questions here on the overall summary, and I just wonder going forward. I note that I think Raina, you touched on. I think we're about 69% of our capex budget.
66.
66. I think that might be helpful to highlight that on page 5. You know, just. To me, that was the main figure, as opposed to, I got a bit confused by looking at 34% of full budget, just from a clarity perspective. And I'm also interested to understand our net debt, how that is tracking in comparison to, say the previous year or two, and whether you've got any insight.
So, of course, we only ever borrow as we're forecast to need it. And so with our capital expenditure program running behind schedule, as is our expected debt drawdown is behind schedule. So we're not drawing down that debt. The trajectory that we're on compared with last year is probably, I would rate that as very similar because we've taken the same approach. Obviously, it does depend on the nature of the debt, and then we take it down. To draw down our debt, we do go to market through LGFA. They go to the market periodically, so we do a bit of forecasting. Sometimes we'll draw down more debt than we need. We obviously invest that in deposits that mean that we're not any worse off, and so we've got that, and that's the net debt figure. So we're pre-funding some of those things as well, but it's really largely similar to where we've been in the past.
Yeah, thank you. And I just had a question about the rates and general debtor balances, and just again, how that, is it comparative to last year? Is it trending upwards? Because I think we had been trending upwards. Just if you've got...
I don't have the exact figures in front of me to compare previous years, but I guess what we will say is that with a higher increase in rates, we will likely see an increase in the rates debtors at the same time.
Yep.
I know that we are working with our ratepayers to set up payment plans and things like that and make sure we're helping them pay their rates. We can provide the exact figures through the Q&A process.
The annualised figure is largely consistent in terms of the debtors, but we do have a heavy backlog of tickets that have been raised with us that we need to work through to ensure that we are meeting the expectations of our ratepayers when they contact us.
Okay. And I think we've got Councillor Tiffenbarker and then Councillor Compton.
Yeah, so just when it came to our debt, obviously interest rates go up, they go down. I noticed that we've mentioned in there that rates were forecast to go down, and I think most commentators are now predicting that they're going to go up again, just due to inflation and all those sort of things. If there's a 0.5% movement in the OCR, 0.5%, what sort of impact does that have on our funding? Because obviously we must hedge over different periods, but what sort of net effect would we roughly get with a 0.5% down or up cost?
We'll have to come back to you on that one. We can go away and calculate that.
Yeah. Thank you. Councillor Compton.
Two questions, if that's all right.
Yeah, sure.
The first, thank you. The first is obviously this report goes to the end of December 25. I'm just curious, we're now 6 weeks into the next quarter. I'm just wondering, other than the Moa Point event, have there been any other events subsequent to the end of December that are not contained within this report that that elected members need to be aware of?
No, I don't think so. The only thing is that we're working through the HUP2 forecast as well that you are aware of, that we've made you aware of, and what that looks like, and that will be coming back through the annual plan process.
Thank you.
That's the only one I can think of, Councillor.
Thank you. And my second question relates to water. We've just heard from Margot around the transition between Te Aki Wai and Wellington Water. I'm just interested, was this expected that there would be a slowdown in our capital works through this transition? It was my understanding that essentially it should be business as usual until the 1st of July, and it should just carry on. I find it, it's just quite interesting that essentially we're going to have a delay in our capital program. If we could just have a bit more understanding around that, please.
Yeah, I'll just get Margot to come to the stand.
So the delay in spending is not new for this financial year. So that is actually a trend of Wellington Water's spend capital program over the last few years. What we are cognizant of, though, and why I was referencing the transfer to Te Aki Wai, is just acknowledging that there are different decision makers around prioritisation. There's different legislation around the decision-making framework, and so that will naturally have an influence. It won't necessarily be the sole driver, but it will influence the types of works and the pace of the works. But as I mentioned earlier, there are a number of reasons that have impacted on the spend, and they're not, around improved procurement practices and improved commercial arrangements.
Thank you. Councillor Compton, any other questions?
No, thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Councillor Fern.
Yeah, just back in debtors, are we noticing an improvement through helping people with setting up payment plans for their rates? Like, is that, how is that helping? What's the overview on that?
Yeah, look, we're certainly noticing that the collectability, I would categorise it as, is much more improved because when we've got payment plans, they're through automatic payments largely. That brings a level of consistency. I guess the one thing that I would flag is with the transition to Te Aki Wai, we are going to have a new bill that our ratepayers are going to have to pay. So there's a lot of work that is currently going into getting those payment plans set up for Te Aki Wai as well. It's much better for the council for payment plans and automatic payments to come out of bank accounts. It helps, it helps alleviate things like people forgetting to make a payment, getting behind, it's already out of their bank account, those kind of things when they are under financial pressure. But we also need to start transitioning really quickly to get payments set up and automatic payments set up for Te Aki Wai in the near future to enable that collectability to continue. So decoupling this is very, very complicated, and Margot's got a team around her working through that process. So I'm signalling, yes, it's much better with those payment plans. We've still got people that disagree with their volume of rates, that don't want to pay things, that have disputes that we always need to work through, or changes in land use, which is always the case. But I'm just signalling there could be some change with the move to Te Aki Wai that we're really kind of focused on.
Yeah, okay. Yeah.
Yeah. Just checking, is Wellington, is Te Aki Wai or us going to be responsible for that negotiation process and all of that? Because, look, we might know how we might handle those particular issues, but obviously we've got a new organisation which doesn't have any background in this.
Yeah. So I'm going to ask Margot to come up. I'll start with a few comments. So each council is setting up and doing the billing process. So Margot has a new finance team that sits underneath her, which she'll be happy. So they're setting up the invoicing and the billing for Te Aki Wai on their behalf, and I'll hand it over.
Thank you, Andrea. Yeah, that's right. So we will run billing on behalf of, as are the other councils. The policies that support and enable that billing process are very much Te Aki Wai's. So financial hardship, financial support, timeframes, all of that is very much with Te Aki Wai. We're working with Te Aki Wai to guide them as much as possible, given that this is our community, these are our customers, and we know them and we know payment history. So we're definitely working with them, but when it comes down to the fundamental policies, that is Te Aki Wai.
Be very interesting to see how that all works. Thank you.
Thank you.
Chair, I had a backup.
Oh, yes, sure.
Yeah, just in the trade billing, can we get a sense, is that growing or is that consistent with the way it normally is? And do we have a similar system in place where we're helping people to, offering payment plans or helping them to pay?
Look, we may need to come back to you on that, but from memory, the trade billing isn't as significant in terms of, needing to set up payment plans. It's very cyclical. So I think a significant portion of the amount that was outstanding at December had been paid subsequently. I may actually be wrong in the December, but we do see on a monthly basis, so ELT gets reporting on a monthly basis, we see it drop off quite quickly. So that it's usually with large business that we have an ongoing relationship with, and they're fairly settled.
Okay.
Thank you. Any other questions? Okay. Oh, well, that's great. Everybody gets half an hour extra back of their day. Just a reminder, after the questions come out, if you are intending to move some amendments, can you let me know, even if you haven't got the wording as exact as you'd like, just a little bit of a heads up. It will help me make sure I schedule the meeting appropriately. Councillor Foon.
Who's moving the natural planning submission?
I don't know. You mean the RMA?
Yes. Old RMA.
Well, Sam will be here in person, but would you like to do it?
I wanted to speak to the mover.
I think at this stage I would like Councillor O'Brien to move that paper. So I haven't finalised who's moving what, but I think suggest talk to him, the expert.